يا رحمة للعالمين يا محمد.
At the age of 12, Prophet Muhammad traveled to Syria with his uncle Abu Talib as part of a trading caravan. When the caravan stopped in the city of Busra in Syria, a monk named Bahira, whose real name was George, saw the young Muhammad and immediately recognized him as the prophet of the Lord of the worlds and the leader of all humanity. The Quraysh asked Bahira how he knew this, and he replied that when their caravan entered the valley, the trees and stones prostrated. It is important to note that the trees and stones prostrated to Allah in joy at the arrival of the Prophet, not directly to the Prophet himself. However, the narrator mistakenly presented this prostration as being directed to the Prophet, rather than in his honor. Bahira warned Abu Talib not to take Muhammad to Syria, which was then under Roman control, fearing that if the Jews there recognized him, they might try to harm him. Persuaded by Bahira, Abu Talib sent Muhammad back to Mecca. Some Orientalists have tried to use this incident to spread the false notion that Prophet Muhammad learned monotheism from Bahira the monk, or that Bahira dictated the entire Quran to him. In reaction, some scholars have denied the incident altogether. According to Sunan al-Tirmidhi, Abu Bakr and Bilal R.A. were also present on this journey, but this seems exaggerated. Abu Bakr R.A. would have been 10 years old at the time, and Bilal R.A. would have been 1 or 2 years old. Scholars like Imam Tirmidhi, Ibn Hajar, and al-Albani affirm the occurrence of this meeting, though Imam Dahabi has raised objections to some details of the story. The notion that trees and stones prostrated to the Prophet also seems unlikely. The Quran is explicit that only Allah is worshipped by all of creation. Thus, the prostration by the trees and stones should be understood as an expression of gratitude to Allah for the Prophet's arrival. But the narrator mistakenly interpreted it as a prostration to the Prophet himself. Even from a young age, the Prophet Muhammad possessed numerous qualities and high moral standards. He was naturally inclined towards Islam and had a strong aversion to idol worship. According to a narration in Musnad Ahmad, the Prophet said to Hazrat Khadija, "By Allah, I will never worship Lat, and by Allah, I will never worship Uzza." In response, Hazrat Khadija advised him to refrain from mentioning Lat and Uzza altogether. The narration further explains that Lat and Uzza were the idols worshipped by the polytheists of Mecca before sleeping at night. However, some Orientalists have misinterpreted this to mean that the Prophet and Hazrat Khadija R.A. worshipped these idols, which is a clear misunderstanding of the Arabic language, as the pronouns used refer to the polytheists collectively rather than in the dual form. According to a narration from Hazrat Zayd bin Haritha R.A., the idols Asaf and Naila were made of copper, and the polytheists would touch them during their circumambulation between Safa and Marwa. Even before prophethood, the Prophet never touched any idols. The Quraysh held a festival near an idol at Bawana, but the Prophet never participated. According to Sahih Bukhari, before his prophethood, the Prophet was once in a gathering with Zayd bin Amr bin Nufail, where food offered to idols was presented to him, but he refused to eat it. Zayd bin Amr bin Nufail was also among those who rejected idol worship and didn't eat meat sacrificed in the name of idols. The Hanifs were those who, even during the era of ignorance, refrained from idol worship and adhered to monotheism. Hazrat Abu Bakr R.A. was also among them, detesting idol worship. The Prophet never lied, even before prophethood. Abu Sufyan R.A. acknowledged this when questioned by the Roman Emperor Heraclius. When asked if they ever accused their Prophet of lying, Abu Sufyan R.A. said no. Even Abu Jahl privately admitted that the Prophet was truthful, but cited political rivalry as the reason for his rejection of Muhammad's prophethood. The Jewish scholar Abdullah bin Salam R.A. recognized the Prophet's truthfulness upon their first meeting, stating that his face was not the face of a liar. The Prophet was also known for his modesty. According to Sahih Bukhari, during the reconstruction of the Kaaba, his uncle Abbas R.A. suggested he put his loincloth on his shoulder to protect himself from the stones. When the Prophet attempted this, he fainted and, upon regaining consciousness, tightened his loincloth securely, refusing to expose himself. The Prophet abstained from alcohol and frivolous activities even before his prophethood. According to Hazrat Ali R.A., the Prophet said he never engaged in idol worship or drank alcohol. Sahih ibn Hibban narrates that as a child, the Prophet would herd sheep and twice thought of attending a Qurayshi wedding or listening to stories. However, on both occasions, he fell asleep before he could reach the gatherings. The Prophet stated that apart from these two instances, he was never tempted by idle activities. This is the account of the Prophet Muhammad's pre-prophethood qualities and virtues, showcasing his natural inclination towards righteousness and truth. During the Battle of Fajar, the Prophet Muhammad was around 14 or 15 years old. Some sources suggest he was 20. This battle series actually consisted of 4 separate conflicts, so it's possible that the first battle occurred when he was 15 and the last when he was 20. The Prophet participated in the final battle, making the age of 20 the more plausible estimate. On one side were the Quraysh and Banu Kinana, people of Mecca, and on the other side were Qais Aylan, people of Taif. The war was triggered when a man named Barad, a Quraysh, deceitfully killed a leader of Qais Aylan, sparking the conflict. The Quraysh offered to hand over Barad to Qais Aylan for retribution, but the people of Taif insisted on killing a leader in return for their slain leader. The battleground was set in the market of Ukaz. Eventually, peace was negotiated, agreeing that the group with more casualties would receive compensation from the other. According to one account, the Hilf al-Fudul occurred 4 months after the fourth and final Battle of Fajar. The background of this pact involves as Ibn Wail Sami, who took goods from a merchant of the Zubaydi tribe of Yemen without paying. The merchant complained to the Banu Abd al-Dar, who ignored him. The merchant then cried out for help from a mountain, prompting Hazrat Zubair to declare that the merchant should be helped. Consequently, the Banu Hashim, Banu Muttalib, Banu Asad, Banu Zura and Banu Taym formed an alliance. This pact stipulated that they would support the oppressed regardless of their tribe, protect travelers, help the poor and ensure no oppressor would reside in Mecca. The alliance was known as Mutayabin, Banu Abd Manaf, and Banu Abd al-Dar did not participate. The term Mutayabin comes from the Banu Abd Manaf's custom of dipping their hands in a bowl of perfume when swearing an oath of allegiance against the Banu Abd al-Dar, later confirming their vow by rubbing their hands on the Kaaba. The Banu Abd al-Dar formed their own alliance, known as Ahlaf, meaning allies, as they took an oath against the Banu Abd Manaf. Some scholars believe it was called Hilf al-Fudul because before this Quraysh pact, certain chiefs from the Jurhum tribe had made a similar agreement during their rule in Mecca. 3 of these chiefs had the name Fadl, Fadl ibn Harith, Fadl ibn Wada'ah, and Fadl ibn Fadala. The Hilf al-Fudul pact was established at the house of Abdullah ibn Judan. Abdullah ibn Judan bin Amr bin Sa'ad bin Taym belonged to the Banu Taym tribe. Once impoverished and morally degraded, he set out to commit suicide but found a treasure in a cave. With this newfound wealth, he started trading and became known for his generosity, gaining leadership and fame. According to a narration in Sahih Muslim, Hazrat Aisha R.A. once asked whether his generosity and charity would benefit him in the afterlife, to which the Prophet replied, no, because he never prayed for the forgiveness of his sins. To be continued.
يا رحمة للعالمين يا محمد